Welcome back to Myth Represented, where everything's sacred and nothing's sacred. This will be episode 3 for Norse Mythology.
This is the Ragnarok episode, where we will tell you about the end-time predictions of the Norse, as well as how we see them today in our modern culture.
So let's figure out, we left off with, the gods were doing their thing, fighting frost giants, drinking and banging like they always do, but it was interrupted by Loki, murdering and just being a next-level dick. And we left him bound with a snake over his head for, just being a general douche.
Did we get with the Fenrir binding as well?
Yeah, we had... This Ragnarok prophecy was known from basically the beginning. So when Loki had his 3 kids, you had Jormungand, Hela, and Fenrir, all predicted to be assholes at the end. So they threw Jormungand in the ocean, which wasn't such a great idea because that just gave him plenty of room to grow. Fenrir they bound, and Hela wasn't necessarily... She was probably the nicest and calmest of Loki's 3 kids, but just in case, they put her in Niflheim, or the realm of Hela. One of those, just to kind of keep her like, okay, you rule this world. They figured that would keep her busy enough to not try to murder everybody at the end.
Hopefully.
So, Ragnarok itself, the word, Ragna meaning organizing powers / gods, and Rock meaning fate or destiny or twilight. Put it together, it sounds really badass. The fate of the gods or twilight of the gods. Pretty much also translates into bitches be fucked. Everybody's screwed. This is not a fun for anybody legend when this breaks down. And it really starts with, we still have these people bound. They know this is coming at some point. Throughout history, for the Norse, Odin got his warriors who went to Valhalla. It was said that they would eventually, be needed once more. So Odin goes around fearing that it's getting closer, with Loki being bound, that he could break out at any minute, is really kind of gathering his troops / training his troops just to be prepared. And one of the things that starts happening is humankind starts to turn on one another. This is basically the first sign that, oh crap, Ragnarok is coming.
Just a quick question. When they're fighting in Valhalla, they fight, and then they're resurrected, and they go to feast. Is that like their training, then?
Technically, because that's all they do. They fight till they die, get back up, drink, eat. So, yeah, it's kind of just for however long it takes till Ragnarok, they're just training. But
they're
loving
going to be
it.
So ready.
They're going to be huge, ripped, insane warriors. But we have people on Earth, their bonds are breaking. Families, brothers killing brothers. Everybody's turning against each other. There's lies, there's cheating, there's stealing. It's just, the fate of the world is just, or the
Sounds
overall
like
thing.
Humanity as they've always been.
Pretty much. It's just, and it's every kind of prophecy when humans turn on each other.
We've been teetering on the brink since the start. This is very optimistic.
This is nothing new. But apparently it's not just the humans, even the gods. It says that in certain legends they've broken their oaths, or have kind of had some shady deals. Even the whole binding of Fenrir, they basically punished Fenrir for something he didn't do yet. They took this thing as a puppy instead of, I think we mentioned it before, instead of nurturing it, they just bound it right away and condemned it as evil.
So it's like they made a lot of really bad investments karma-wise.
Yeah, to me it's one of those self-fulfilling prophecies. If maybe they would have left the damn thing alone, it would have been a nice giant puppy. But they basically tortured and bound it and kept it in jail. It turned out to be not so nice and later turns on him.
Gods never want to raise their kids, so we bind them, eat them, just anything but raise them.
So we have, the mortal world, Midgard, turning on each other. Then comes 3 years of just straight winter. No spring, no summer, no fall, just winter. Fimbulwinter, the great never-ending winter.
And I'm so done with shoveling already.
Yeah, we've lucked out here. We've had 2 good ones. It felt like Fimbulwinter with that last snow we had. I'm done. So, we've got turning on each other. We've got the Fimbulwinter. Now, things are going to get ugly. This is where Loki and Fenrir both somehow just break out of their chains. Which, at this point, they scatter. Loki goes to get some allies in the form of giants. And the first one to notice that, oh crap, this is about to go down, is apparently 3 roosters. There's one in Asgard, Midgard, and in Niflheim. And so they start to crow with a warning of the shit's about to hit the fan. And at one point, it's Heimdall. It was his job to watch everything. He was the all-seeing. And he had his horn, Galadriel horn, that he blew a certain note. He saw the giant armies coming, the armies of the frost giants. And he blew this horn, and that's when everybody knew, time to get armor up, grab your weapons. This is it. This is real. This is not a drill. This is not a test. We're screwed. So this is where it just breaks out. Odin comes with his armies. All the gods get together. At which point, one of the first things is Fenrir. Sometimes said he had 2 children, Hati and Sol, the ones that were chasing the sun and moon. Well, it's now the point they catch the sun and moon. They eat the sun and moon. Go on.
Yeah, another thing they could have prepared a little better for. They should have really seen that coming.
Well, yeah, they even said when we first met the 2 characters that are the sun and the moon with, the good old everybody has a chariot going across the sky, they knew that they were thrown up there. They had these wolves just nipping at their heels the entire way, knowing their destiny wasn't that someday they'll get to stop. No, it was someday they'll get to be eaten, and that was probably a relief for them at that point.
Such a bad system.
So we got those 2. They finally get the sun and moon. Fenrir himself, it's said that he was so huge that he ran around with his mouth agape. Roof of his mouth eating the sky, and bottom of his mouth eating the land. I picture just giant Pac-Man style Fenrir. Just waka all the way through, just devouring everything. There's like Inky Blinky, Odin and Tyr, Ghost trying to chase after him, and it didn't end well for anyone. But at the same time, he's also, while he's Pac-Manning across the realm, he's also shooting fire from his eyes and nostrils, just in case he missed anything. Like, well, maybe I didn't swallow that, so we'll just singe everything along the way. Now, we also have Loki's other lovely child, Jormungand. So with everything going crazy, he starts to rile up the oceans. So now we've got tidal waves, typhoons, just tsunamis, just everything going crazy. Plus, he rears up and just goes apeshit, swirling up the ocean. He's now coming out of the ocean, flailing around. I'm picturing again like a wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man style, but at the same time spraying venom and poison into the sky. So now it's just, you've got him flailing around, oceans going everywhere. You've got it now, it's raining freaking poison on everyone. So we've got fire, we've got poison. Now we also know of the bridge for the gods, Bifrost. This is how the gods got back and forth from Midgard and traveling the realms. Well, we have another key player, Surtur, of the fire giants of Muspelheim. He decides he wants to get in on this thing. So he comes with his giants. They march across Bifrost and just light it up as they go, destroying Bifrost. So we've got fire giants, we've got Fenrir, we've got Jormungand. Not enough. Jormungand was riding up the ocean. It kind of wakes up something. It wakes up the Naglfar, the ship of nails or ship of corpses. This gets weird. This is Loki's main force. This is controlled. The captain of this ship is Hrym, basically the king of the giants at this point. And it's full of frost giants, and even sometimes mentioned as corpses, as we call the Draugr, which were kind of the angry Viking zombies. And this thing starts sailing, and it's said that that goes directly to Asgard. Now, the weird thing with this ship is, yes, it's supposedly made of fingernails. Now, we talk about the gods preparing for Ragnarok. Apparently, there's a way mortals could help too. There's 2 ways. We'll talk about one of them here. And it was said that when you died, you had to have your fingernails clipped. Because if you didn't, if your fingernails were a little long, when you got to the underworld, your fingernails would then be taken and used to build the ship even bigger. So the more people who didn't have clipped fingernails, the bigger this ship would be at the end of times. So everybody could do their part by clipping your fingernails so the giant angry zombie ship would not be quite as large come the end of times.
If I was going to make a ship out of parts of a human body, fingernails would probably be at the bottom of my list.
That's what I'm going. That's going to take a lot.
You can make a much better ship out of femurs.
At least femur ship.
At least from my experience, I know this. Or ribs. Ribs and skin. It's watertight.
Says some of the translations say it could have been made up of entire corpses.
That would have been metal.
That might have been the original, but then later it kind of turned into this little folktale telling kids, clip your fingernails so Loki doesn't have a giant cruise ship full of dead people.
Whatever gets your kids to behave.
Yeah. So we've at this point, this is the heat of the battle. Giant snakes, giant wolves, fire giants, ice giants, and all the gods. It's said that Odin gets his spear, he gets his eagle helmet, and he's riding his horse. We've got Tyr and Odin fighting together. We have Thor, Freyr. Basically, every god. It's even said that Balder and Hrod come back from the dead to join their brothers and sisters in one final battle. So, crazy stuff's going on. Everybody's just beating the snot out of each other. It's said that the final battle is Vigrider. That's basically the field where this is all taking place. Now, it starts to come... Everybody kind of in... I kind of think of Mortal Kombat 2 at the end where everybody picks their little matchup for the final battle. So we have Thor versus Jormungand, Surtur versus Freyr, Heimdall versus Loki, Odin and Tyr versus Fenrir. It's sometimes said that Garm, another hound from Hell, or the realm of Hell, was involved, and it was Odin versus Fenrir and Tyr versus Garm. But we'll just say they're teaming up on Fenrir. It doesn't end well for anybody. Surtur and Freyr end up killing each other, but not before Surtur can light basically the entire world on fire. Sky, water, earth, anything that, even things that shouldn't be flammable, are now burning thanks to Surtur. Thor and Jormungand get in a battle. Thor manages to kill Jormungand, but not before he makes one last spit of poison, which hits Thor. Thor makes what was said 9 steps before he just, boom, drops dead. Heimdall on Loki, which I wish there would be more detail of this, because Heimdall hasn't been a very big key player. And if you had to pick a battle yourself, somebody to fight Loki, you'd probably think Thor or Odin. No, Heimdall. The guy that watches things, is really pale, and has a big horn. But, hey, he managed to do so. I mean, they kill each other. Odin and Tyr end up, they just get eaten flat out by Fenrir going waka waka waka, just devours them. But he has a son named Vidar, which then proceeds to basically come out of nowhere to avenge his fallen father. And it said he grabs Fenrir's mouth, stomps down on the lower jaw with his boot, pulls up on the top jaw and just rips him in half. Now, this would be the other way that mortals can help in, the outcome of Ragnarok. It was said that Vidar had a special boot. Not even 2 of them. A special boot. This was his basically curb-stomping hellhound boot. And what you could do was that if you had shoes that you were no longer wearing, you didn't throw them away. You would rip them up. You would give pieces of those leather, and you'd put them out on your doorstep. You'd put them outside. Somebody said you would burn them, but you never just threw them away. Because it was said that they would go to Vidar. Vidar would come in the night, I guess, like Santa-esque, and come and
like
take...
the Tooth Fairy, but for shoe leather.
Basically, yeah. You'd put your shoe, your used-up shoe under your pillow. He'd take it, maybe give you a gold coin or 2. But he would use this to Frankenstein together this giant boot of doom that he would then use. So, the more people who put out their boot parts, the stronger Vidar would become Ragnarok. So, anybody that wants to help out, clip your fingernails, never throw away old shoes, just put them on a pile on your doorstep, and Ragnarok will be just a little less painful. Now, everybody dead. Almost everybody dead, Our main gods are dead. We do have some surviving ones, but at this point, everything is burning. Everything just comes to the point where all of Yggdrasil, the entire tree, all the 9 realms, just burst into flames, charred ashes, sink below the ocean. Or back into, we talked about Gingundam Gap, where everything kind of originated. This is that going back, this cycle. Everything came out of there, now it gets destroyed and goes back. But it's not the end. this is one of those new beginnings. It's said that both Balder and Hrod survive, along with some of the children of the gods. I think it's Magi and Modi, Thor's children, survive. Odin, through Vidar, who kind of avenged him in Vili, survive, with some of the other deities. Then we had, I believe it was Ask and Embla were the first two humans that showed up at the beginning of creation. Then we have Lif and Lifthresnir, the first two humans in this new world. It begins to rise back up out of the ocean, and new names are given to some of the places. There's some sacred fields. There's a realm of the dead where it said that Nidhogg is basically eating the corpses left over from Ragnarok. But this is a story that, I mean, when you say the word epic alone, this is epic. This Ragnarok is the epic story of everything. This battle is just the battle of battles. But it has this hope, this kind of a happy ending. There are a lot of your favorite characters. It's the season finale of your favorite show. They maybe just killed off a lot of your favorite people, but you know it's going to come back for season 2 with some of your favorites from the cast and new people, whole new setting. So it's basically now the Norse Mythology 2.0. It's all of creation 2.0.
That's always a nice thing. It seems most apocalypse myths do always have that new beginning afterwards. One door closes, another opens.
Mm-hmm. So many of the mythologies we talk about are based so much off of the natural world. And they saw everything as that cycle, as we've said time and time again. So just watching, winter, everything dies and it sucks, but it comes back. So that even went with their mythologies coming to the end of the world. Yeah, it sucks, but things will be reborn. Spring will come. Again, new gods, new places, new people, and we can just start all over.
It's just like a long play cycle of seasons.
Pretty much. So that is Ragnarok. Now, just because, the gods have fallen, it doesn't mean they were forgotten. Now, I shouldn't even say that because technically this was all of the Norse stories were things that happened. But Ragnarok was a prophecy. So who knows? It could still happen. So like I said, keep trimming your fingernails and putting your shoes on the doorstep. But we have so much today of pop culture Norse. Just doing some of the research from it was just pages online or pages in books of references to movies alone, TV alone, comics alone, video games.
So many video games.
Just, yeah.
Music.
So many death metal bands. So what are some of your favorites in Norse mythology today? Some things that have inspired things.
Some of my favorite inspired things, well, I'm a big Douglas Adams fan. I love Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And there's Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, the sequel of which is Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul. This is a book that a lot of literature buffs have heard of, but I haven't met a whole lot who've actually read it. This book has to do with the gods being made by humanity, because we needed gods, and we dreamed them immortal. However, later we decided we didn't need gods, we had science or modern takes on religion. However, the gods were forced to continue being immortal, and now they just don't know what to do with themselves.
That's so sad.
It is very sad. Hence,
it's like an abandoned child. You made it, and then you played with it, and then
if that's how you
about
feel, you're going to love this book, and I'm going to force you to read it, if gunpoint, if need be. But The Long Dark Tea Time of the Soul very much centers around Thor and Odin, and the troubled father-son relationship between them. And this book has what is, in my opinion, the best depiction of Thor. No offense to anyone else who's done anything, no offense to the Marvel franchise, but this is my favorite Thor. Because of that whole fact that the gods really are in a sad state in so many ways. They have a very good depiction of Valhalla in this book. Highly recommend it. It is one of my favorites. And another one that's a very close tie is the game Skyrim. Skyrim is set in the Elder Scrolls version of the Norse world. And while they don't have the same deities, the same mythology, they do have a lot of things that are taken from Nordic culture. There are the Jarls who run the place. They're like the local politicians, the local lords. You have housecarls, taken from the huskarl, as servants or bodyguards. You have, as you mentioned, the zombies, the dwerger. Those are very much prominent in the game. You have trolls, you have giants, and there are also, though you don't see them, you go to a lot of dwarven ruins and you learn dwarven smithing. And in this game, when you go to a dwarven ruin or smith something out of the dwarven metal, it always looks like gold.
Gold.
Everything in these ruins are solid gold. It's a big city made of gold and machines that kill. And they're always packed with treasure.
Sounds
so
about right.
You know, and I don't know what happened. I've only ever played Skyrim. I'm not really that familiar with Elder Scrolls. I don't know what happened to the dwarves, but they disappeared somewhere.
If I remember correctly, it was said they built some sort of contraption
out
or
of gold
weapon, probably some giant gold bomb that gold plated and killed them all. And I believe it's Morrowind, where you actually find a surviving Dwemer.
I need to play more of those
games.
He's
very, again, if I remember correctly, very Mojo from the X-Men like.
Oh?
He's not doing so good, something he took a lot of damage from whatever the Dwarven disaster was, and basically with their weird contraption and insect robots, has kind of a spider ass.
Those things freak me out as is.
Yeah, just picture like an overweight, mutilated dwarf. It's basically Mojo without a tail. Possibly slightly shorter. When those games, they were rather large. It was just their armor that gave them the appearance. But yes, so much of that with the species, or the races. You have the high elves, / wood elves, the dark elves, the Dwemer.
There are the elves.
The humans. Even with the dragons, you can kind of... Needhogg himself was one of the speaking dragons.
Yeah. As you mentioned before, another big thing with pop culture is, and I have a lot of friends who are into metal, I'm just going to say, there's a lot of Norse reference in metal, and there is a subgenre of metal specifically called Viking metal, which is just nothing but references to Norse mythology. And also, the band Manowar proclaims that Wagner is the father of heavy metal, and Wagner was very heavily influenced by Norse mythology, including one of his most famous pieces, Flight of the Valkyries. Yeah. So Wagner, if he is in fact truly the father of heavy metal, was himself inspired by Norse mythology.
That's awesome.
So it's, as Manowar said, the gods made heavy metal.
Isn't there an episode, I think, Deathclaw, where they summon a frost giant out of a lake or a troll or something?
Yeah.
Because they're that metal.
Yeah, it's the Mustakrakish, who they summon accidentally by making a song out of an old poem that they find, which is apparently the spell to summon the creature. And then, of course, they fight it with heavy metal.
That's... Okay, sounds about right.
Which they are supposed to play on Grandpa's instruments.
Now we have to mention one of the biggest things right now being the Marvel Universe.
That's your expertise.
We mentioned, we had the Olympians being kind of in the background when we talked about our Greek mythology and how they tie into the Marvel Universe. With Marvel is hugely inspired by Norse mythology because one of their main superheroes obviously being Thor. And Thor first appeared in Journey into Mystery number 83 back in 1962, so this dude's been around a while. It took a few years, it was 1966, until he first got his own self-titled Thor number 1. And it was originally intended that his character was Donald Blake, who was kind of a reincarnation of Thor, or could summon Thor. He would walk around and he had a cane, and he would turn into Thor, and that cane would turn into Mjolnir. I guess it was later retconned that he was basically Thor from the get-go. It was Odin decided, Thor's been becoming kind of a little ass and needed to be punished or kind of set straight. So he sent him to Earth, made him forget his memories, and now he basically just runs around.
It's like Thor. Hercules in New York.
Yeah, basically. It was pretty much the same premise. Dad gets fed up with son because son's not listening, so sends him to Earth as punishment, which I'm going... That's nice. They all look at us as the Midgard is just that's the punishment place. You've got to go deal with those mortals.
It's always nice to have a purpose.
So, obviously he's been very prominent in the MC, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've had him. He's got 2 standalone movies. He's been in 2 Avengers movies. And you have appearances from... You've got a good deal of the mythology. You have Heimdall. Okay. Heimdall in the Thor movies. I think he was great. He looked really cool. His armor was amazing. I think the actor did a fantastic job. It's just kind of amusing to me that he's played by a black guy. So I can understand you want a little diversity in your movies, fine, but you could have maybe picked someone else. Because Heimdall's name translates into the whitest of the gods. If there's anyone that you should have kept white, maybe it should have been the albino.
I'm wondering if maybe, like, because gods can do weird things like change their appearance, maybe he just changed his appearance, but because he's Heimdall, no one wanted to say anything because they knew they'd get jacked up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because Heimdall will kick your ass.
Now it was said that he had a gold teeth. He had a nice golden grill. But it was still white and pasty. So, again, I love the actor, but it made no freaking sense.
That is funny that he was the palest of the gods, and that was the one they chose.
Yeah, it was the only one they chose to be black.
I'm glad he was in the movie, though. I love him as an actor.
You also have Odin. Anthony Hopkins, I think, did an awesome job. You had, of course, Loki. And these movies made Loki very popular, and everybody loves Loki, and he's charming and devious. Just remember the stories we told you of Loki. Loki in mythology was awful. Awful. There was nothing charming about him whatsoever.
We all would have loved Balder had Loki not killed him.
Exactly. So I believe even in the comics right now, Thor is now just known as Odin's son. Somebody whispered some strange sweet nothing into his ear, which caused him to be... that he's no longer able to lift Mjolnir, and then some Thor with boobs popped up. Turned out to be his girlfriend in the comics, Jane Foster's new Thor. Thor's running around with an axe now. I don't know. Marvel gets complicated.
Didn't he lose an arm?
I think, yeah, lost an arm. Now he's got a new one. I don't know. We had so many alternate universe tie-ins with that. But a lot of Marvel's original story, like Silver Age, was based on Thor, and they touched in the comics so much mythology. Surtur's a main character, Balder, Sif, which, again, Sif in the comics and in the movies has black hair. Again, you want to change the hair color of a character, that's fine, unless the character's key thing about them was the fact that she had long golden hair.
That was a very...
That's another one.
Key element of her.
Change any... To the point where, remember, her hair was chopped off by Loki and then remade out of gold by dwarves, because dwarves also make wigs.
Only if they're out of gold.
Yeah. So some of the other fun things we have, again, I mentioned in previous pop culture podcast, because I love the Gargoyles show. And there was an item that was found by kind of the main villain, and it was called the Eye of Odin. And it was exactly what it said. It was a fancy piece of jewelry he gave to his wife, or fiance at the time, as a pretty necklace. And then she turned into this giant werewolf monster, and they realized, hey, this might not just be a pretty gem. No, it was, in fact, Odin's missing eye. And it was said whoever wore it, it would see into your soul, and it would transform you into your potential, your uttermost desire, So she happened to be, code name was Fox, so she turned into like a were-fox. And anybody put it on just came into this steroid monster thing. And eventually, I believe they met Odin and gave it back to him. Some other ones, something else kind of popular these days, Attack on Titan.
Ah, yes.
Which is kind of an odd thing. The show itself, Attack on Titan, we've mentioned the Titans in Greek mythology. Yet, so much of the Titans in the show is actually Norse mythology. The actual city or the one gate, Utgard, was, in mythology, it was the wall built around the giant stronghold. So basically when the gods knew the giants were going to be asses, they built this wall. And in this manga, in anime, they used that name for the wall built around the city or the city itself
to defend
keep out
them,
them.
Yeah. To keep out giants.
Even one of the characters' names, Ymir, just blatantly, hi, Norse mythology. It's even said that believe there was a feast scene in either the manga or the anime where there was a giant boar running around. It should have been golden, thanks to the dwarves, but even the Titans themselves, the Titans in Greek mythology were all very intelligent, but they all had their They were speaking, they were plotting, they were gods, basically. They were just the first gods. Where the ones in this show are just kind of mindless monsters. That follows more with the idea of the Frost Giants. Yes, they were sapient. A lot of the Frost Giants are characters that had roles in different stories. But a lot of them were just kind of the mindless grunt soldiers that came to attack. So even though it should be kind of called Attack on Frost Giant, or Attack on Jotun would, I think, sound better.
Yeah, there are other manga as well that more heavily draw on Norse mythology. One that I did not read but came across and I'm interested, it's on my read list, but Vinland Saga. That's one that apparently very heavily draws on it. One that I did get to read but got canceled partway, named Ragnarok. Which that was based on the whole Ragnarok battle. But of course, everything was modern. Characters would have guitars and weird things like that. But really good series. Unfortunately, cut short way too soon. It should have been done to completion. I loved it. I don't know why it wasn't successful. There's apparently a Ragnarok online game that I think may be based on it. I don't actually know. And of course, the comic Sandman by Neil Gaiman once again has some references to Norse mythology, although I'm not sure how much I'm going to mention that. I might as well mention that on every single pop culture coverage but not a whole lot, but there is definitely some appearance of the deities in there.
You always cover Sandman and Neil Gaiman, and I'll cover Marvel.
Because there's always something.
Oh, I almost forgot too, my favorites. Speaking of comics, the X-Men and New Mutants really had a lot of tie-ins with the Asgard and things being part of the Marvel Universe. There was the X-Men, Loki had something with Storm, kind of wanted to make her the new Thunder Goddess. So they ended up all going to Asgard and getting Asgardian duds, and I believe this was in the 80s, so Marvel's take on Vikings and then X-Men costume combined with that, really entertaining to look at. Even the newer team, the New Mutants, had a whole run-in with Norse mythology and Asgard, to the point one of their characters, Dani, she was actually blessed and became a Valkyrie. She could summon a horse with wings and get cool armor, so she was a mutant superhero and even a Valkyrie. And later she lost her powers as a mutant but kept the Valkyrie powers. Kind of cool. So now, another big influence. We actually just started watching the Lord of the Rings movies. And we have to mention Tolkien. Tolkien got so much inspiration from Norse mythology. It was originally said that he wanted to create a mythology for, say, Europe. It didn't have one according to him, like Egyptians had their mythos or the Greeks had theirs. But in reality, with Europe, you had both the Celts and the Norse that influence and obviously had so much mythology. And if you look at Tolkien and all of Middle-earth, the races, again, just like
elves, dwarves,
so humans. Much of it. And if you look at a lot of modern fantasy, from movies to role-playing games to novels and even just art,
they all lifted from Tolkien.
Yep, you always have the same characters, the same races, with just different names. You might not have hobbits, but you have changelings. You might have ogres, halflings. Well, even the changelings, where it's said that they were left, that would have been Celtic mythology, that they left.
Oh, yeah.
The Fae would take your baby and put theirs in, and it was said to be kind of half human, half Fae.
So he really didn't make anything new.
Not really. Even names.
What a punk.
Gimli was, I believe, a place after Ragnarok, when the world was recreated. Gimli was a name from Norse mythology. The Forest of Mirkwood was a place from Norse mythology. So much was just a ripoff, or at least a lazy reinterpretation.
Where did hobbits come from?
Hobbits, again, I believe they are referenced as halflings. I don't know in Tolkien what they would be, but a lot of their appearance would kind of go with some of the changeling mythologies, and a lot of even just Fae in general. You look at some of the, again, modern fairy myth. They're these pretty little things with wings, and in old Celtic mythology, they were usually hairy, ugly little men that ran around living in holes and coming out of holes.
Okay, that sounds about like that. Yeah, Tolkien pretty much influenced everything. I mean, find some sort of fantasy setting that doesn't have something in it that isn't at least elf-like.
Yeah.
He gave us our obsession with elves.
And so many of these things say, oh, he's the inspiration for modern fantasy. Yeah, but he got it from the Norse. You look at the world tree and the 9 realms. That would be opening up your role-playing book, and here's the 9 races you can play as. Or starting up your video game, and here are your classes to pick from.
Mm-hmm.
These are the characters you had. These are the races from elves to dwarves to different things like that. It was even, I believe, the orcs were said to be elves, but corrupted.
A fallen, warlike race of elves.
Yeah, basically, orcs came from Svartalheim. They were the dark elves. So there wasn't much that he didn't take, or wasn't, I should say, inspired from this Norse mythology. And because of him, he kind of gave it this newfound life and brought it into more of the modern era, where, like I said, anything involving high fantasy that we think of, we can kind of trace back to some of these Norse myths.
It's crazy just how everything evolved from that one progenitor. Oh, another thing I have to mention, I feel like there has to be at least one terrible movie for each mythology.
Oh my god, that's right!
One terrible movie that references the mythology, and this time it is a movie that is so bad
it was beautifully awful.
It was made to be bad. There was no intention of this movie being anything other than just pure brain candy. Kung Fury, wherein Thor is a gigantic 50, 100 story tall man.
Yeah, old man with bouncing pectorals.
Who loves to flex his muscles and shoot lightning. Watch Kung Fury. You'll either love us or hate us for making you do it, but we're making you do it. Watch it. Do the thing.
The main character, basically, he hangs up a phone by crushing it and starts a car by shooting it. That's how it starts.
If anyone tells you not to watch this movie, kick them in the face so hard that their head explodes.
And it does have some Norse tie-ins. I mean, one of the Viking ladies with machine guns comes in on a giant
dinosaur.
Well, the one was on a giant wolf.
Yes.
So, yes, there are giant dinosaurs, which I'm just going to put into Norse mythology that everybody had.
Such a beautifully bad movie.
Yes. Thor makes a portal that helps them time travel, I believe. In the final battle, Thor comes back and he's there to fuck up Nazis, but it was a beautiful train wreck that, yes, it did officially have some Norse tie-ins.
Beautiful movie. And days of the week are one big thing that I remember once long ago wondering where the days of the week came from, and then finding out that they were from Norse mythology, which, of course, you have Sunday and Monday. That's the sun, that's the moon. Saturday that's Saturn, or Kronos, so that's Greek.
Yeah, that's just
Roman.
An awful day.
But the other 4 days, Tuesday is actually was Tyr's Day, known for shoving his hand into the mouth of Fenrir, and also he went out on the beer run too.
Yes. So on Tuesdays, don't stick your hand in any canine's mouths. I just avoid dogs altogether on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But that's the day to go for your beer run.
And then there's Thursday is Thor's Day, so that's the day of Thor. So
that's Tuesday the day you just smash anybody that's taller than you with a hammer.
Good thing to do that day. Wednesday, Woden's Day, or Odin's Day. So that Wednesday, Hump Day, is the day of Odin.
Watch your eye.
Watch your eye that day. And Friday is Freya Day, or Frigga. That's the day of Freya.
Oh, you go to a dwarven gangbang on Fridays?
Yes. Hey, it's,
wear your finest gold jewelry.
And, I have one more thing I wanted to mention on my list of things that have come from, not necessarily Norse mythology, but just from Viking culture, from the Skalds, the great warrior poets. They invented a little something that is used to this very day. In a sort of warfare, they utilized poetry to demoralize their opponents and bolster themselves up. The Norse, the Vikings, invented rap battles.
Whoa.
Yes. The original rap battles were done by Vikings. So we have metal, we have heavy metal from the Vikings, and we also have the first rap battles. And I love the idea that come Ragnarok, all the gods are just going to rap battle while all this is going on. And I refuse to believe it's going to be anything but.
That's the missing piece. It doesn't say how many of these gods kill one another. It's rap. Oh my god. This changes everything.
It will be the epic rap battle to end history.
believe that ends, brings to a close our episode on Norse mythology, pop culture, and end times. Which means next time we get to start all over again. We get to create the universe again. On that note, we will see you next time on Myth Represented.
All right, take care.